relationship with Trigger as a studio could probably safely be compared to a relationship with a previous lover. All possible love and respect for each other is gone, sure, but now it's all water under the bridge, and we just passive-aggressively growl whenever we hear each other's names. I mean, all things considered, this is the best possible way to go. It's better to send to each other lawyers than shotgun pellets, after all. So, Brand New Animal, or BNA for short, is an original 12-episode urban fantasy anime created by Studio Trigger as a Netflix exclusive, which after the last news about Netflix sounds especially ironic. It tells us a story of a world where animal people live and a young girl named Kagemori Michiru suddenly has a life-threatening problem on her hands. She's a human, but suddenly she's a Tanuki beastman. And in this world, people don't like no beastmen, if you get my drift. So she travels to Animacity, a Japanese Bantustan for beastmen, and gets involved into conspiracies that would not only endanger her, but the fate of every beastman in the world, and so on and so forth. The beastmen in BNA suffer from the same thing Ruby Faunuses suffer, and that it's hard to believe that they're being oppressed by humanity, at least not in any meaningful way. Sure, they have shown that the hatred is so huge people are organizing death squads to hunt them, but if anything, now they at least have their own city, which is better than it was before, especially when they're daring to use real-life events, and... Trigger. You can play this game. My employers compared the show to Kiznaiver, that being the last Trigger anime I've hated so much, but if anything, BNA reminds me of Flip Flappers more. It has the same narrative pacing, where the character's introduced and forgotten within one episode, a conflict between a stoic character and a naive character, a colorful culmination that is supposed to be looking cool but is insulting the second you actually stop and think about it. It does have some Kill la Kill elements as well though, like the bitchy sports club and slum dweller comedy relief characters whose sole purpose in the story as well as the main joke is that they're poor and greedy because they're poor. I suppose the main protagonist also has more in common with Ryuko than Kokona because her beastman powers could be summarized as whatever the plot wants it to be. And that reminds me, the ending, you know, I don't think a dry explanation can explain the exact levels of disdain I have for this show's ending, so instead of trying to be comedic about it, allow me to take a note from the show's direct appeal to real-life events. So imagine, if you will, that there is an undisclosed oppressed group in the world that, as a compensation for the atrocities committed against them, had gotten their own state. The state is supported by the world financially, but in its policies and politics it is pretty much independent and exclusionary. There are many people in the world who to this day don't like this group of people, and them getting their own state only pisses them off more. This results in these groups of people militarizing and committing terror acts against them. And those people who are actually supportive of them in actuality know little to nothing about beastmen or their needs and seemingly support them only because it's cool and trendy. But you see, all of that I've mentioned is actually bullshit. All of that isn't important in the grand scheme of things because it appears that one of the main sponsors of the state secretly wants to remove everything that makes this oppressed group special, turning them into your bog-standard civilized humans. To do so, he manipulates this group using their own religious beliefs and even creates a special sort of vaccine that would turn the target's genes into a genes of a standard human. In fact, he even created an army of bots designed specifically to enact this sort of task. And do you know why? Because you see all of that group that's oppressed? They're mudbloods, hybrids, impure, and only this guy, this apex element of their species, has the correct genes and power to rule over both regular humans and these insignificant subhumans that will be turned into humans anyway to show them their place. One can even say that he considered himself to be genetically superior to other races. What nice information to dump on the viewer in the last fucking episode of the show and then be kinda defeated but not really. The only way this could be handled even more cow-handedly is if this all was written as an addendum to the inevitable manga. The graphics as well as the sound remind me of both earlier Trigger works as well as earlier 80s, 90s animes these people are clearly inspired by, which means that, well, it does its job. People who still like Trigger anime would probably be happy. I personally think that the fight scenes were muddy and the animation overall was not very good. And that's pretty much it, really. This anime is a great example of what would happen if earlier anime trends would survive to this very day. But other than that, I'm not very happy I've watched this. In fact, I'm so spent on this anime, I don't even have any desire to conclude it. So instead, well, I'ma talk about another anime I watch. Making this video the first Sino Detatamo of this season. Yay! Sino Detatamo! It is often said that the Japanese make some weird shit, but for the most part we only hear about their weird hentai industry, ignoring that the West has about as equally freaky sex industry with more suffering no less, or equally weird sports shows where disciplines range from falling balls straight into rocks to synchronous panty sniffing, and maybe I'm just kinda gotten used to this all, or maybe I'm just a dirty cultural relativist, but such things stopped weirding or even surprising me a long time ago. This makes me a bad person to watch shows like Olympia Kyklos, because weirdness of its visuals is pretty much the only redeeming part of it all, and it gets boring pretty fast. It's kinda like SCP or Slenderman or that backdoor creepypasta in a way. It's entertaining at first, but once you understand how it functions, the novelty is gone and you'll see it for the unoriginal snorefest that it is. The basic point of Olympia Kyklos is to be an ad for 2020 Olympic Games. We follow a claymation Greek living his ancient Greek life, and he occasionally gets teleported into drone Tokyo, Japan, where he gets new ideas for whatever thing is troubling him that particular day, and that's pretty much it, really. Comedy happens, modern Japan is best, and if this was a Hollywood movie made somewhere in the late 30s, it would be about a Chinese guy seeing New York for the first time, and the silly gook would be the butt of the joke. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a bad anime to watch, especially as this one is one of seemingly few animes that you can watch right now on YouTube, but admittedly the comedy is typical for a short-format comedy show, which means I'll at best hate it, at worst shrug at its predictability. You decide which one I'm leaning towards here.